So how may we go about dealing with our hatred for others? Maybe we feel that we are repelled by other people. It's funny because it was always when I was on self-improvement, when I was trying to better my life, that I found myself judging others, thinking, look at this person, look what they're doing with their life. They're just wasting their life, and look at me, I'm trying to make things right for myself. I'm trying to do better, and these people don't seem to be trying at all. And it was always when I was deep in self-destructive behavior, in regret, and shame and guilt, where I realized how difficult it can be to be human. It was in those low moments where I was always the most compassionate. And so you see, if we're dealing with strong feelings of hatred, if we're repelled by other people, if we find ourselves always judging others, this will produce a lot of suffering, a lot of negativity in our life. Because the truth is that we are aligned with what is false or what is illusion. We are not aligned with truth. And when we are separated from truth, we experience hell. We experience suffering. And when we are aligned with truth, we experience peace, joy, happiness. A lot of the times we get distracted on the surface level problems. We try and put band-aids over gunshot wounds. But what often happens is that as we grow, as we develop our sense of self, we repress all the parts of ourselves that we deem unacceptable, that we want to hide from the world. What happens is that there's an unconscious sense of self-hatred, of self-judgment. But rather than being conscious of this, we project it onto other people, and this creates a sense of separation from those unfavorable traits. Those people have those characteristics, but not me. I'm a good person. I do what's right. I don't do anything wrong. And so the way we judge others is often a great indicator about what we have repressed in ourselves. This is what you would call shadow work. It's bringing to light all the parts of ourselves that we have deemed unacceptable. And then we accept them and we send them love. Because so long as we reject any one of the parts, we reject the whole. Because the parts and the whole thing cannot be separated. They are interdependent. And so a lot of us walk through life with this sense of incompleteness, this sense of lack. And there may be many reasons for this, but sometimes it's because we've left parts of ourselves in the past, parts of ourselves that we've had to let die to get through difficult situations. Sometimes we've had to build walls to protect ourselves from others, so we don't get hurt, so we don't feel betrayed. We prevent ourselves from being vulnerable because we've gotten hurt too many times in the past. But what this does is that it closes our hearts, and so the flow of love cannot move freely through our lives. Hate may fill its place. Negativity and negative emotions might fill the space where love should be. And we have to remember that we cannot actually judge another person. We cannot hate others. Because the truth is that we are all one, and that any sense of separation is an illusion. And what we do when we judge others or hate others is that we are just projecting our inner reality onto them. Because what do we know about other people? The mind creates these identities of who we believe other people to be. So we can have a sense of control, so we can feel like we know something. Because in unconsciousness, in the dark, that is where the monsters lie. That is where death is. And so out of fear, we have to pretend or delude ourselves into thinking we know something. And this is a very useful thing for us as biological creatures. Because if we were just in chaos all the time, we would be overwhelmed by life. We have to have this sense that we are in control, or that we understand the nature of our reality. This gives us kind of a framework in which we can live our lives. We're not always questioning everything. And you see some people kind of get lost in this madness, where they're always questioning everything. They don't know what's real and what's not real. A lot of people who get into conspiracy theories experience this. But that can be dangerous as well. We want to find balance in order and chaos. We cannot allow ourselves to get too lost in the madness. And we cannot get too prideful in believing that we truly understand our reality. We must always be willing to allow the unknown to present new and valuable information. But so long as we believe we know, then there's no space. Why continue to learn something if you've already figured it out? That is why Socrates was one of the wisest men, because he said, "All I know is that I know nothing." This allows us to always be fresh, to always see clearly, to not be blinded by our beliefs. And the more clarity we can develop within ourselves, we can see more accurate information. And with more accurate information, we can make better decisions. But if you just believe that you know, your beliefs are false, then every action that you take will be made on false pretenses. Your actions will reflect the underlying framework in which you are living your life. And so if your life is not going the way you want it to, it is your framework, your understanding that has produced that result. And if your life is going well, if you have love and peace and happiness, well, then you have a greater understanding, you have a more accurate framework. You are more aligned with truth. And so use your feelings, use your emotions as a guidance system to tell you whether or not you are aligned with truth, or if you are aligned with that which is illusion. The more peace you feel, the more happy you are, the more love you have in your heart, that means you are aligned with truth. And whenever you experience these emotions, pay attention to your recent actions, your recent thoughts. What are the things that fill your heart with love? What are the things that give you peace of mind? And so too, when you feel negative emotions, hatred, resentment, irritation, reflect on your recent thoughts, your recent actions. Reflect on the words that you speak to others, because all of these things are a reflection of the underlying identity. And whether or not this identity is aligned with truth will determine the amount of well-being that you experience. So if you are experiencing a lot of negative emotions all the time, irritation, anger, hatred, resentment, it means there is a flaw in your identity. Or at the very least, it means that there is something that needs to be changed. Because with the suffering that comes with these negative emotions, you cannot say you would rather not be experiencing them. This negativity brings with it the idea that I would rather not be experiencing this at this moment. And it motivates change. So by definition, there is an error in the way that we are living our lives. And when we can correct this error, then we can begin aligning ourselves with that which is true. And there may only be a few major things that we have to address. And a lot of them may not even be your fault. Because we grow up and are traumatized and are conditioned, but our mess is still our responsibility to clean up. And the situations that trigger us, that make us angry, that get us irritated, that is the gateway. That is the gateway to discovering what we need to heal about ourselves. Pay attention to the patterns that are repeated in your life. I like to say that if something happens to you once, it's just something that happened. If something happens to you twice, then maybe it's just a coincidence. But if the same thing happens to you 3 times or more, then it is something that we are doing that is creating this in our life. The problem extends from us. And this can also be true for positive things. But more often than not, we get ourselves in the same negative situations over and over. If we have the same feelings about other people, if we have the same triggers, if we have the same arguments again and again with the same person, then there is some flaw in the way we are looking at the world. Our framework is not providing us with the results that we desire. And this really is one of the greatest aspects to the game of life, is unraveling ourselves, self-reflecting, and knowing ourselves. We are the mechanics, and we are the mechanism. And part of the joy of life is having a broken mechanism and building it over time, making it better, improving it, where eventually the machine has become so finely tuned that life just becomes magical. Every moment is beautiful. And it will be the suffering, the darkness that we go through that will provide the contrast which makes our beautiful experiences that much more enjoyable. But if we get too lost in the hatred, in the negativity, in the darkness, and in the madness, then we risk never finding our way out, because our attention is focused on the wrong things. It's not focused on growth. It's not focused on what is good. And therefore we are again in illusion, because whether or not we can accept it, all things are good. The dark and the light are equally important for the wholeness of everything. We like to reject the darkness and identify with the light. That just means that we are rejecting parts of ourselves that will come back to haunt us. We are rejecting the parts of ourselves that are human, that are imperfect, that sometimes desire things that are not good for us. But if we can learn to accept the darkness within, the darkness of life, then we will become free to developing our character, to integrating the parts of ourselves that we have left behind. We can experience a sense of wholeness and completeness. So pay attention to what angers you, to what triggers you. This is where you will enter the shadow, the darkness, and begin exploring yourself. I remember Jordan Peterson talking about King Arthur, I believe, in the Round Table, where as they went to search for the Holy Grail, each one of the knights entered the forest at the point which seemed darkest to him. And it was Carl Jung that said, "What you are seeking is that which you least want to look. In filth it will be found." Like the lotus flower that buries its roots in the mud at the bottom of a pond, but becomes a beautiful flower on the surface. What we often see as death, or that which is disgusting, that which is rotting, that which is ugly, these things are fertilizer for the soil of our lives. And they will become the nutrients in which we grow the higher states of being. No tree can grow to heaven unless its roots reach down to hell. Pay attention to the dark aspects of ourselves. Why are we repelled by others? Why do we have hate in our hearts? What is it about our identity that is creating these emotions, creating these thoughts? Self-reflect and discover yourself. Know thyself. What is the paradigm in which you are existing in that is producing the results that you see? And whether or not those results are satisfactory for you. Because if you are not living a life that you enjoy, if you do not feel peace, happiness, love, at least the majority of the time, then there is a cognitive dissonance between the truth and ourselves. Oftentimes we are in this kind of purgatory where we're not really so aligned with truth, we're not really so aligned with illusion. And this middle ground can be very unsatisfactory. Use your feelings and your emotions as a guidance system to let you know whether or not you're on the right track. And use your suffering, the negative experiences, to lift you up rather than keep you down. The choice is yours.